join us with Welcome, councillors, to this meeting of council, and I wish you all a very happy new year. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. The meeting is also being recorded for the purposes of the minutes. I have been advised that the live stream is now up and running. If for any reason the public cannot hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn until the connection has been re-established. Can I ask the governance manager to explain the procedure for the meeting and to confirm the members and officers present? Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. So on the call today, we have all members of council, bar a few that we're going to put through for apologies. In terms of the meeting of council, members are advised to dress and behave as if in the council chamber. Please be aware that this meeting is being streamed and recorded. A reminder for all members to speak through the chair, remaining muted when not invited to do so. To indicate to speak, please write speak within the chat bar. And if members could limit contacting the team via the chat function rather than contacting other members, that would be helpful. I'm going to turn on closed captions for the meeting, and I'm also going to record this meeting. You'll hear.
Yeah,
Apologies.
I don't know what happened. I had the wrong number or something, I think.
I'm just going to click the record button now.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, just one final reminder for members, if you could introduce yourself before speaking, for example, Councillor X representing Y Ward. Councillor Roger Hall has just joined the meeting for members to note. And also in this meeting, we do have a number of officers present. We have Lee Hicken, who's the head of paid service, Karen Hanson, who's one of our strategic directors, Jane Dethick, who's the head of the section 151 officer, and assisting the chair and vice chair in the chamber is Sarah Sternberg, who's the monitoring officer. Thank you, Chair.
Nikki, can I just say, I've just gone on the chat bar and it's just coming to you. Is that okay? Just as private.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so members should be able to contact me through the chat function, but we have disabled for chatting members through the chat function to each other for this meeting.
So, sorry, will you pass that on to the chair then if who wants to speak? Is that the...
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Are there any more apologies for absence?
Chair, apologies have been received from Councillor Carol Huckabee, Mike Rowe, and Councillor Jackie Ridgway.
There's one more. There's one more apology. Councillor Lee Stone.
Did you get that, Nikki? At least.
Thank you. Yes, I've noted that one.
Declarations of interest. Members who have interest should have declared them to the governance manager in advance of the meeting. We have an item on today's agenda in relation to the Killamarsh Leisure Centre, and the monitoring officer has advised that Killamarsh parish councillors should declare a significant other interest in this item of business. Can members please indicate if they have any interest to declare?
Chair, Councillor Pottsworth and Councillor Cuffer indicating their wish to speak.
Councillor Potts.
Sorry, I was just to declare that I do have an interest in item number 14 on the agenda.
Councillor Bone. Yes.
Councillor Kevin Bone, Killamarsh East, I'm also declaring an interest.
And Councillor Whitehead.
Yeah, I would also declare an interest in item 14.
Chair, Councillor Clough is indicating his wish to speak.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to declare an interest in item 9. I shall remain in for the debate, but I don't think I should be able to vote on that, but perhaps the legal officer can consider and advise me on that one, please.
Thank you. In your packs, you will have the minutes of the previous 2 meetings of council. May I remind members of that the content of the minute documents can only be discussed in relation to the accuracy and not for debating. Please can I have a mover to accept the minutes of the last meeting as a true and accurate record? Councillor Armitage.
Yeah, Councillor Dale is indicating his wish to speak.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy to move the minutes. And just to note also that I think Councillor Pat Bone and Councillor Clough would also want to declare the interest in the Killamarsh paper as well. I'm not sure that they were able to raise their hand.
Right.
So is that motion on both sets of minutes or just the first one, Chair?
Councillor Alan Moore. Councillor Marr. Mr. Marr.
Mr. Marr, indeed, Chair. No, it's just simply to say there are 2 sets of minutes before council today. Is the motion to move on both sets of minutes or just the first set of minutes?
I'm happy to move both, Chair, if that's easier.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Okay.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah, I'm trying to put in something in the chat bar, and it's not letting me to do it. I don't know what's occurring.
Okay, bear with me a moment. I'll see if I can resolve the chat bar function.
So I just wanted to, and I know we can't open a debate on it, but just on the minutes.
Councillor Barker, are you indicating you wish to speak on the minutes?
Yes, please. Is that okay, Chair? It's just, obviously, I agree to both the minutes. I just, on the first one, there's still a couple of issues that have not been resolved yet. And on the second one, on the whatever it is, COU 62, on the appointments and advisory groups, the extra bullet point about bringing the findings back to a council meeting. Have we got a date for that? I thought it might have come to this one. That's all. Thank you. Did you hear that?
Yes, can I just clarify, Councillor Barker, you mean the report on the 6-month rule, etc.?
Yes, that we put an extra bullet point in to do a.
You required me to do a report, which I have actually drafted and will be going out with the papers for the February meeting.
Okay, Sarah, thank you.
Okay.
Could we have a seconder, please? Councillor Armitage.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Chair, would you like for me to issue a poll?
Yes.
So members have issued a poll to you asking you to vote for, against or abstain to approve the minutes of the meetings of council held on the 12th of October and the 19th of November. Chair, if you can just bear with me while those results come in. Chair, we do have a few members still left to vote. However, at the moment, we're at 45 votes with 100%, so the vote would be carried. So with your permission,
There's 2 for in the chamber as well.
and I'm sharing the results on the screen. So 45 on the at-home vote. So that would be carried, Chair.
Thank you. Now, item 4, Chair's announcements. Prior to the season break, I held a pet photo competition, which asked for a £5 donation on entry of an amusing photo of a pet to win a £50 Marks and Spencer's voucher. We had a number of entrants and I found it very difficult to choose between them. However, with difficulty I might add, I have chosen Finn as the winning pet. This raised £40 for my chosen charities. I also would like to say thank you to the parish council who have responded to my letter asking for a donation to my charity, if that was possible. And I'd like to say thank you very much for those that have responded. Can I now invite Councillor Dale to give the leaders' announcements?
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I start by wishing you all a very happy new year? I hope that you've had a good break over the Christmas period, despite the restrictions, and that you were able to catch up with friends and family, even if not able to see them in person. I'm sure you'll all join me in hoping that 2021 is a far better year than 2020, and that it will be the year that we will see the back of this dreadful virus. While the news of the approval of the 3 vaccines is helping to fuel that sense of hope, a further national lockdown is clearly not what any of us will have wanted to greet the new year with. We continue to meet on a cross-party basis to ensure that the council and Ricknold Homes are doing all that we can to respond to the pandemic, to support our residents and businesses, and to continue to deliver the services that our communities rely upon. Our communications channels have all been updated to reflect the current guidance and advice, and we've reached out to those vulnerable residents who we supported during the first lockdown to offer any assistance that they may need, as well as doing some phone calls to a random sample of the wider list of residents who registered with us in the first lockdown. The team have reported back that other than bits and pieces of advice and guidance and support, the residents we've spoken to remain in good spirits and are very grateful for the support. And we will keep checking in with them over the coming weeks. Once again, officers have been checking that care homes around the district know that we are here for them should they need any help. Officers have also been working extremely hard to get the support grants out to businesses who have been either been closed or severely impacted by the recent local restrictions and national lockdowns. As of last week, over 1,100 grants have been issued, totaling £1.3 million, covering the period since we entered Tier 2 back in October. Details of the grants covering the Tier 4 restrictions and the latest lockdown are still coming through, so please do bear with us while we get those grants set up as soon as possible. It's fair to say that the grants landscape is a complex one, and I know that some of us will have businesses in our patches who have some queries about that. If that is the case, then please don't hesitate to contact either myself or Councillor Parkin, and we will be very happy to look into any of those issues. Many of you will be aware that the Sharley Park Leisure Centre opened on Friday as the first large vaccination centre in a public space in Derbyshire. I'm extremely proud that the council is supporting the vital rollout of the vaccine in this way, but equally I am determined that we must try to do more. We have been in regular contact with the CCG to offer support wherever required, and also to put forward possible additional venues, some on behalf of our parish and town council colleagues, that we would like to see being used to vaccinate our communities. I will gladly keep council updated on this hugely important issue. I'm conscious that we have a busy agenda, so I won't speak for too much longer. I just have two further points I wish to make. The first is a thank you. I want to say a huge thank you to all of you as our elected members, as well as our fantastic staff and staff at Ricknold Homes for everything that you are doing to support our communities through this incredibly difficult time. Equally, I'd like to thank our residents and businesses for all that they are doing to follow the rules and guidelines so closely, and for doing our bit to get back on top of the virus. As the Prime Minister has said, we are in the midst of some of the hardest weeks, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we need to keep working towards that. In particular, I want to say a big thank you to Councillor Powell, Councillor Rough, Councillor Thacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Funnell, and Councillor Windley for all of their work in the Care at Christmas appeal, which was absolutely fantastic in raising much needed funds to support that project to get Christmas presents to residents in care homes. And I know from some of the feedback it's been very, very gratefully received, and also obviously to thank all of the officers from across the council and Ricknold for all of the work that they did in that. It really was a marvellous piece of cross-council working, and I'm really, really pleased with the results of that. And finally, just to point out that of all the organisations that have been impacted by COVID, charities in particular have been hit hard, and the difficulties in carrying out fundraising activities has meant that some fantastic causes have struggled to gain support. Now, I know that the chair, Councillor Ancliffe, has been doing a fantastic job in trying to raise much needed funds for her two Chairs Appeal charities, Alzheimer's Research UK and the National Deaf Children's Society, but understandably has been impacted by the restrictions over the past 10 months. So before closing, Chair, I'd like to make a final plea that all members do whatever they can to support the Chair's Appeal and to promote it in your local communities wherever and whenever the opportunity arises. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Can I confirm that no public questions have been submitted? So we shall now move on to the next item. Can I invite Councillor Parkin, Portfolio Holder for Finance, to present the report?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, Councillor Parkin, Portfolio Finance, and also representing Dronfield North. This report, we're presenting the annual audit letter, and this is relating to the year 2019/2020 from a financial perspective. So this report is from the council's external auditor, Mazars, and this is for the council to know. Mazars presented their audit findings to the audit committee on the 30th of September and issued an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements on the 30th of November this year when they presented. I would also like to thank the team in finance for the immense amount of work that they were doing at during this particular period whilst the audit was going on. The audit itself is a large piece of work for the finance team within this council, but they also had an awful lot more on their plate as well, as Councillor Dale has mentioned, with the COVID grants and all sorts of announcements being made during that period too. So I'd like to move recommendation at 6.1 that the council considers and notes the attached report from the council's external auditors, Mazars. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a seconder, Councillor Thacker.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair of the Audit Scrutiny Committee, I can confirm, as Councillor Parkin has already said, that the committee did scrutinise this information from Mazars and noted that the value for money conclusion did say that the council put in place proper arrangements to secure economy, efficiency and effectiveness in its use of resources for the year ended 31st of March 2020. So I think the report is self-explanatory, and as such I second the recommendations.
Thank you. Are there any comments?
Yeah, Councillor Barker would like to speak on this item.
Councillor Barker.
Actually, Nikki, it was from last time, and I think Pat Kerry were going to speak on it, so I'll not steal his thunder. I was just trying to delete me speak from my original thing, and it come up. So it's working now anyway. That's good. The chat bar is working. Pat, do you want to take over?
Can you hear me? I would only like to comment on the fact that it is a letter. It shows no problems at the moment. I think problems will come further down the line. I would just like to say I know the work involved with the audit and the audit letters from past experience, and it started from a good base and it's still continuing by the look of it from that good base that we left you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parker, would you like to make a right of reply or comment?
I have no further comment, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. Can we have a show of hands for all in favour?
Yeah, that vote
That
is
appears to be
carried.
unanimous, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Can I invite Councillor Rough, elected member champion for mental health, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. My name's Diana Ruff, I'm a councillor representing Wingerworth Ward. Fellow members, I hope you've all had the opportunity to read the mental framework documents that were sent to you. This is just phase 1 of the project and is directed at not only our workforce, but also for members. Core mental health issues are widespread, can be very disabling, and due to the present pandemic, the number of people suffering with mental health issues are on the increase. From the action plan, you can see we have set out clear ways forward for the council. This document has been previewed by some members of our workforce and have received a very positive feedback. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the officers that have been involved with this project, especially Lee Hickin and Richard Purcell, for all their hard work. We do have a stage 2, and stage 2 will investigate how we can support our residents across the district, also to investigate funding for appropriate support groups. With this in mind, I hope that you will all accept and support this document. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to echo Councillor Ruff's comments, really, it is, as she says, just a starting point, and obviously stage 2 will be to look more at how we sort of implement mental health strategies into the services that we deliver to residents and into our communities in lots of different ways. And this is much more of a internally focused document. But actually, I know from some of the conversations I've had with staff and from our employee liaison group how well this has been received by staff. Some of the comments were marvellous. We're totally happy with this. Some of them felt that the training that they'd had in terms of mental health first aid had been very, very positive, and we're really pleased with that. So just to second this, and I think this is a really good starting point and a good base from which we can grow and move forward. And I would echo Councillor Ruff's comments in thanking some of those key officers, but also to thank Councillor Ruff for all of her work in chairing the sort of steering group that's seen this through. So thank you very much, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any comments?
Councillor Barry would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Barry, North Wingfield. We welcome this policy as a whole, and we're glad it's only phase 1 of the policy. I do have a few concerns having to deal with this sort of thing on a day-to-day basis within my working role. And that really relates down to the mental health first aiders. You've relayed to training on there. I was wondering if you could sort of say what sort of training they've got and who's provided that training, where it's come from, but also what safeguarding have we got in place for those first aiders? Because obviously if you're listening to somebody else that's got a mental health issue, then that can have a negative impact on yourself as well. So I'd like to know what we're doing about supporting them, you know, what we've got in place for those people for safeguarding. And the other bit I was a bit concerned about, it said about in the document on page 52 under number 9, it says mental health first aiders that employees may wish to speak to about issues they're experiencing themselves or in others. I was always of the impression that the mental health first aiders were only really there for low level, very low level guidance and support, and their main strategy was to signpost people on, which I do note is on page 51. So my concern is, and it's a national concern out there in the trade union movement as well, is about support that both first aiders, the mental health first aiders get as well. Other than that, you know, we're in support of this document. And then the only other concern I've got is how are we getting out to people who work out in the field as opposed to being with somebody in an office, or well, it's not quite an office these days, is it? But you know what I mean, in the general work and run of the mill. How are we dealing with the digital divide? Because not everybody has access. And I've noticed all the documents that you relate to are held on the network. So it's about what are we doing in order to get out to those wider ranging people, please. Thank
you. Councillor Lee Higgins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to give way to Councillor Rough and happy to step in if she needs me to answer any of those particular questions around the operational matters.
Actually, Lee, I was going to pass it over to you.
In that case, thank you, Councillor Rough, and thank you, Chair. I'll try and address those. As Councillor Barry does rightly allude to, we are not the experts, far from it, but what we are, similar to the safeguarding arrangements generally, we're not the experts in that either, but we try and equip our organisation with the right level of skills. Our role is always primarily about recognising, acknowledging and then signposting to others who are far better equipped than us. In terms of training, I'm a mental health first aider myself. There are a number of us who've been trained up to that 2-day, I can't remember the name of the organisation who trained us now, I do apologise, but we did the 2-day course, which is followed by examination. But we've got over 100 people trained up in mental health awareness now, which is not as intensive, but it is more about recognising signs, symptoms, understanding what to do when presented with some of these signs and symptoms, or in fact approached by a member of staff. And it's really about putting in place a system that can offer that support and signpost to others who are better qualified should that arise. In terms of the approach to mental health, we hope to take a similar approach to safeguarding, which I believe has been very successful. We as an organisation, both internally, but because of our the tentacles from our organisation, I guess, that spread out into the community, it makes for a very good safeguarding system where we spot things out in the community, home visits, etc. When people come to the offices, as well as our own workforce, we put in place a framework that gives us great confidence, and the adults and children's safeguarding boards great confidence in what we do as a district council. We hope that we can follow a similar approach for mental health, and part of the next phase of development is in fact establishing that network and promoting that network of mental health first aiders across the council to the same degree that we've got for safeguarding generally. I think I've covered everything there, Councillor Barry. I'm not quite sure if I've not.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. Again, just to congratulate on this being document that's been prepared so far. Again, I would emphasise the fact of being someone who has a lot of experience in this area. It is clearly very much a starting point. My concern from having read this through several times, it is, with no disrespect to anyone, very low level. It doesn't really pick up on complex needs at all. There's no real identification of more complex mental health issues in here. I obviously that's something we need to be aware of. We will have colleagues who are in that situation. I would really want to make sure that the next step does kind of go towards and build on that. It is essential. It is a disability. A lot of the time it's actually got a physical cause. So it's something that someone lives with for the rest of their lives. And this, whilst it touches upon it, it mentions it, there's nothing there to actually address the issue. We're very much dealing with depression and anxiety and the kind of things that will address those, but we're not really moving beyond there. And as I say, it does seem to be a very definite shortcoming in there.
Thank you. Councillor Cornwell.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Susie Cornwell, representing Heath and Homewood, and I want to pick up on the item 2.4 of this report, where the mental health group is taking on an outward-facing and mental health lens perspective when working with the agencies involved and trying to get support for people they are supporting. Ultimately, I will be supporting this report, and I am glad that the council is taking mental health seriously, but this is a start of a very long and a very complicated journey. And I also question whether the mental health group know the challenges ahead, and do they have the skills and the scope and the resources to look at the issues that are needed when working with people with mental health that it entails. So I want to tell you a bit of a story, really. Councillor Maggie Jones, who's in this meeting, and myself have had personal experience of how the system and the agencies have unfortunately failed individuals. And we're hoping and we're asking this group, when they're looking through the mental health lens, that they start to look at solutions, such as the joining up of agencies and making sure that all the stakeholders are heard, listened to and are involved. Now, Councillor Maggie Jones lost her Robert, her own son. And as a district councillor, I had a homeless person, Paul, who lost his life when we were both unable to get them the support they both so desperately needed when they were alive. Despite trying with all our might, we were pulled from pillar to post, fobbed off, and we just couldn't get the answers or the solutions. And it's been a painful journey for both of us. We've been left frustrated, angry, and desperately wanting solutions. And we have no doubt that the system is failing individuals with mental health. And we believe it's because the agencies are ultimately underfunded, and that the agencies are often unable to help due to the Data Protection Act. So both of these issues result in the individuals not getting the support that they desperately need, despite advocates trying absolutely everything to raise their concerns. So I want this group, I hope this group will seriously look at how the multi-agencies can have joined up thinking, and that everyone who needs to be heard is involved. We'd also like to say that Councillor Maggie Jones and myself are really keen to be invited to this group, because we don't know who's on it and who isn't, so that we can share our experiences, because we want to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to, I know Susie we're going to make these comments, you know, on a personal experience, and just to make the point that we are really supportive, and I know it's the start of a journey, and I just hope that you will, we want to work together really on this. That's the point I want to make. If we can help and resolve some of them issues, and I know mostly it's about our staff, which is great, and I know Ricknold have done work in past on a similar thing, which is great. still take on board what Councillor what Jane said. We've got a second name. Councillor Barry said is that you know, we don't want to overload our staff. You know, that end up taking on board everybody else's problems. So there's an issue there, but ultimately we really, really want to make this work. And if we can save somebody's life at the end of it, because that's ultimately what happens, then obviously we'll support it. And I'm looking at you, Alex. I can see you're on my screen that you're nodding a little bit. So if you do want us to get Susie especially or Maggie to get more involved, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was actually, as Councillor Cornwell was talking, I was going to suggest that that she pick it up outside with Councillor Rough, some of those issues, and Councillor Jones, because you know, this isn't about politics. This is about trying to improve a difficult situation. I think probably all of us would accept that mental health services, you know, aren't in the place that they should be. We might disagree about the reasons for that, but fundamentally, I think we'd all agree on that point. And I'm sure Councillor Rough and the rest of the working group, which I think is largely officer based, would welcome, you know, external views. So we can certainly accommodate that and proceed on that basis. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Angelique Foster.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. One, the first time that really pleased to see this strategy coming to the council, and it's come from the commitment that we have to our staff first and foremost. So I'm just putting a caution across that yes, mental health outside our staff is very crucial, and we should do everything we can do to help and play our part in helping the issues in our community with mental health. But this strategy, first and foremost, is aimed at our staff, and I wouldn't want to cast our net so wide that we don't do the first thing that we aim to do very well. So I would say let's make sure that we do the first step very well, and we do provide that service to our staff that is efficient, effective, and that works. And I think we do resolve some of the issues that have been highlighted, maybe a bit more training, etc. And then phase two, like you said, is a wider look at how we can play our part as a council. But there are plenty of agencies that are doing that job. Really sorry to hear some of the stories that have been very personal, but they're beyond the remit of the district council and beyond the remit of this strategy, I feel. And let's not forget that mental health has completely changed over the last few years. So it's probably going to be different again next year and the year after. So this strategy is a starting point, but it's also a moving document. We're not saying it's going to be the final thing. We're stopping here. It will be a moving document, and it will be improved as we go along as well. We're learning from experience as well. So, and I'm sure that both Councillor Diana Rough and Lee Hinkins, as the main council champion, will bear that in mind as well. And we'll have the support of all the councillors in this chamber. But also that, you know, mental health, remind everybody, over the last few years, there's more and more investment from government has been put towards mental health, because it has been recognized as one of the key issues that needs to be improved in all our communities. So investment has been increased year on year, and I think it will continue to increase, I'm sure. The lockdown, the COVID-19 have brought forward more issues. The first lockdown brought some issues to our staff. The second lockdown will bring some other issues, and I'm sure we'll have to deal with other matters as we go along. So this is, for me, it's like I said, it's a great document to start with, but we all understand here that it's not a final document. We'll be improving as we go along as well.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Birkin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I welcome this initiative. I think it's a good step forward, as all of my colleagues have said. A couple of small points. Lee mentioned the similarity to the safeguarding initiatives, which, if I remember correctly, there's an invitation, a need for councillors to be aware of safeguarding situations. I wonder whether there are any thoughts about councillors being involved in identifying the early stages again, to repeat Councillor Barry, we're not experts by any stretch of imagination. But for councillors to have any training or a suggestion that they may become involved in spotting that first set of problems that individuals might have, and to that end, and also because of our concerns about what it means to staff, which again Councillor Barry has explained and were expanded upon. Would it be possible to get a summary of what those 2 days of training comprise? Because that's a fair amount of training, 2 days and an examination following it. I'd be interested to see maybe a summary of what was involved there, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Aiken.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll just answer those two points that were raised there, or questions. The first one, yes, very much so, along similar lines to the safeguarding training. It's about creating as much awareness out there amongst officers and members. And we are a bridge. We are a bridge to other expert services. So if we can have a similar level of success that we have in creating that network from a broader safeguarding perspective in relation to mental health, then I think we'll be a good way along to a better place. In terms of the training, yes, you're right. The 2-day mental health first aider training is quite involved, and it picks up on many of the things that other members have said on council today, including Councillor Hancock, who began to list the various complexities. So from our mental health 2-day trained people, of which there are fewer, I'm one of them, but it does go into all of those complexities. And at this stage, we've chosen to leave that out of the strategy as it is today. But certainly, in terms of the knowledge, understanding, awareness around the various complexities, then it is held within a certain number of staff. The broader training that we've put in place is more about awareness, in the same way we deal with safeguarding generally, taking on board Councillor Barry's comments earlier on in terms of overloading people with information and too much. You have to pitch training at different levels, I guess, depending on the individuals and as a broader council, in terms of getting people trained up to a certain level. There's a lot of commitment required depending on the degree and content. So yes, absolutely. In terms of member training, we envisage this being rolled out in a similar way to safeguarding training has to date.
Thank you. Councillor Ruff, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Thank you, Chair. I welcome all the comments that have been raised. It is an early stage, and I welcome Susie Cornwell's interest and Maggie Jones. I'm sure we can all get together and work to look at ways further for this document.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. Can we have a show of hands, please? All those in favour?
Chair, that's carried.
Thank you. Councillor Vision, Derbyshire.
Thank you, Chair. I was asked a question by Councillor Lewis. Yes, I do think you need to, as you have done, all county council members should declare an interest. You will know the nature of the interest in relation to the report. If it's not significant, you will stay, speak and vote. If it is significant, you will have to leave. But this applies to all county council members.
So, sorry, Sarah, what did you say? I just caught that, all county council members then.
Sorry, because this is an issue that affects the county council, you will have to consider what kind of interest you have to declare. Councillor Lewis raised the point at the beginning, and it's for you to decide whether you think it's significant or not. If you don't think it's significant, you can stay, speak and vote. If you do think it's significant, you would leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Are there any other declarations of interest?
I'll, if I may, Chair, I'll declare the same interest as Councillor Lewis, although I don't believe it's significant enough for me to not participate in the debate. So I will stay and participate and vote. Thank you.
Angelique Foster, Councillor Foster.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, same point really. I'll declare an interest as a cabinet member at Derbyshire County Council. However, I don't think that it's a significant interest, and I'm happy to stay in the debate.
Councillor
I'll
Barker.
do- If them two are staying, I am.
So is Councillor Lewis then leaving the meeting at this point?
Just to clarify, if I may, Chairman, I'll be staying in the meeting and the debate, and I'll take a view about the vote as we work through the debate. But I think on looking at the report, I should be okay to vote.
Are there any other county councillors?
Chair, I did put in chat box like Councillor Wright here.
Councillor Wright.
I declare my interest as a county councillor. There's no significant issues what will be raised, so I shall be staying in the meeting and I will be able to vote. Thank you.
Are there any more?
Yeah, I wondered if you could explain how 3 county council cabinet members are able to sit in this meeting and claim that they don't have some form of significant interest in what we agree.
Can I hand over to?
It's one of those situations where it's for the member to decide, and they know the nature of their business as a county councillor. You've all seen the report. The individual makes the decision.
Thank you. This item was marked to follow on your agendas and has been published in the supplementary agenda. Before I invite Councillor Dale to present the report, Lee Icken will be giving a short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It won't be a long presentation. If Nikki can just allow me to share screen. Can everyone see that? Can you see that, Sarah? Can you just give me a nod? It's on screen. Thank you very much. Okay, so just before Councillor Dale presents the report, I thought it might be useful to just give a little bit more background in terms of what's actually been happening in terms of Vision Derbyshire. So it was around 18 months ago when the council, along with all of the Derbyshire councils, embarked on an exploration of future collaborative working. It was a programme that was built upon the premise that collaboration and collaboration at scale could go on to achieve better outcomes for the communities that each council serves. PricewaterhouseCoopers were commissioned to support this programme, which would be conducted in a series of phases. So phase 1 included all 10 councils, and the intention was to identify the priorities of each of the councils, the level of ambition and appetite that there might be to progress with what was called at the time non-structural reform, which then went on and resulted in the development of the broad principles for collaboration, which included various benefits, but not least a viable alternative to unitarisation, potential areas for future collaboration, and these included tourism, the visitor economy, skills and employment, and climate change, amongst others, and the critical success factors that might be necessary, including the ability to work at pace, working as a collective and in a way that was not classed as business as usual. Phase 2, following a bit of a pause, the programme was reinitiated in March 2020 and Derby City declined to continue at that point. So it was all of the other councils with the exception of Derby City. A series of workshops were rolled out, which included senior officers and leaders from across the county. And these were always aimed at testing the emerging collaboration model and to begin to set out the plans for the future of what was to become known as Vision Derbyshire. From these workshops, 4 key ambitions were developed, and these were, as they say on screen: seizing innovation, establishing relentless ambition, building proactive communities, and living and working sustainably. Here are the key ambitions in a little bit more detail. So seizing innovation was around building the physical, digital and knowledge assets and infrastructure to support the new industries that will be fit for the future and attracting inward investment and facilitating place-based networks between business and educational institutions and entrepreneurs and workforce to spark innovation. Establishing relentless ambition was about raising the aspirations of all young people in Derbyshire and supporting and empowering them to acquire future-proof skills and trainings to be successful and support an innovative and diverse economy. Individuals would use these skills and energy to give back to their communities and the local areas. And overall, Derbyshire would become an attractive place to live, work and play, and known for its blend of green space, diverse economy and job opportunities and quality of life and community spirit. In terms of building proactive communities, this was empowering local communities, enabling them to be self-organising and building economic and emotional resilience against external influences and empowering those communities and individuals to utilise available technology and well-being knowledge and infrastructure such as the green spaces that we have. And living and working sustainably, which we'll hear a little bit more about later in the presentation. This was had a focus on affordable housing, economic growth and physical assets, and the responsibility of the economic and emotional resilience being shared amongst communities, businesses and local government with mutual recognition. And finally, people prioritising sustainable lifestyles, balancing work and play, and using and rebuilding assets and making good life choices. Those are the 4 key ambitions of what underpins Vision Derbyshire. So the workshops then went on to focus upon, well, okay, we know what we want to achieve. What do we need in order to be able to achieve that? And here you see on screen a list of enablers that may be required for the ambitions to be realised. Each of these have or will become a work stream in their own right. And along with the enablers, it was felt that there may have to be certain asks of government for Vision Derbyshire to develop and be truly effective. So in terms of the living and working sustainably work stream, aligned to the original premise of being able to collaborate at scale and improving the outcomes for our communities, a series of pilot projects are being explored that will hopefully demonstrate this. I've been appointed as the lead officer as part of this programme for this living and working sustainably theme, along with Councillor Emma William, who's the leader of Amber Valley Borough Council. In terms of these pilot projects that you see on the screen, these are 3 programmes that are currently under development. So the first one is a Thanks a Ton campaign, which is all about raising awareness and then getting the community to commit and sign up to reducing their carbon footprint by a ton. So in terms of impact, in terms of climate change impact, that is, it's hoped that we can demonstrate that by collaborating as a county, we can vastly increase our reach and improve the uptake and obviously the level of commitment on a county-wide footprint. Second one there is Healthy Homes. This is aimed at external wall insulation and internal wall insulation, for that matter, of our non-traditional solid wall, hard to treat homes. So it's acknowledged and understood that across the county, most districts and boroughs have got a vast amount of these properties. And it's one of the single biggest things that we can do as local authorities to reduce carbon emissions is getting the energy, our homes in our communities more efficient. This has got the potential to be a national sort of example, if you like, of people coming together. And when we consider the lifetime savings of or lifetime reduction of carbon throughout this programme, it's into the millions of tonnes. So hopefully this has got the opportunity to become a flagship programme to be funded through central government under this programme of work. And the final one there, electric vehicle charging points. Every borough and every district across the county is currently working to put in place electric vehicle charging infrastructure. It feels as though it's done in a non-joined up way, and as individual organisations, we appear to be approaching this on a as and when opportunities arise. And the idea of approaching this on a county-wide basis, again, it will bring forward efficiencies through procurement. It will appear more attractive to central government and other funding bodies. And finally, it would be done in a coordinated way. So in terms of rollout and, as I say, procurement. But underpinning these two, Healthy Homes programme and the electric vehicle charging points, does align very strongly with the ambition for our whole region, really, to be investing in greener economic growth. And often the challenge there is about having a steady stream and pipeline of work that allows businesses in these sectors to have the confidence to grow. So with a pipeline of work that could be identified and funded through these sorts of programs also gives business the confidence to grow in order to meet that demand. And I'm happy to take any questions, but that's it for me, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, would you like to present the report and move the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Lee, for the presentation. I hope people found it useful. I mean, I would say that just a short introduction to say that I think Vision Derbyshire remains a very exciting agenda. There's still a lot of engagement from across the 8 councils that are involved. I would still say, despite it having gone for sort of 18 months, it's still at fairly early stages. It's largely at the moment a broad framework or for collaboration at scale. There's still a lot of detail to work through, and obviously, of course, any detailed matters such as structure or governance will come back to full council for any approval. That would clearly be a decision for council to make. But based on what's been happening so far, I think it's showing some good progress. There are some really good pilot projects there that Lee's indicated, where clearly collaboration at scale has a huge amount of benefit to not just ourselves, but all of the councils across Derbyshire. So really the report speaks for itself. It's only a sort of in principle support to continue to engage with the process. I'd like to have council's backing to continue to have a seat at the table in the discussions and hear what's happening and be involved. And obviously any matters of detail such as structure or governance will come back to full council for sign off and for everyone to agree with. I think I appreciate that some members may have concerns over Vision Derbyshire, and I think, you know, I have concerns on the basis of what we actually put on the table and what that governance looks like. So I share some of those views from some of you, and obviously I would want to see that we are involved in the shaping of what Vision Derbyshire looks like, so that we can get the most out of it. And if it turns into something that we're not happy with, then I'm perfectly happy that we walk away. But at the moment, it's early stages. It's still being worked up, and I think it's showing itself through those pilot projects that it really can achieve some huge benefits for the whole county. So I would like effectively council to support our continued engagement with it, and obviously come back to a future full council when there is more detail to go through and to discuss and decide where we go next. So I'm happy to move the report, and obviously we'll take any questions in the right to reply at the end, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Councillor Cupit, Chair.
Councillor Cupit.
Yes, Chair, just to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Councillor Barker?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, interesting, Alex. Yeah, and obviously we'll support you in that. And I think it's a paper, a good paper, and I'm pleased that the concept of the structural reform that were being mooted has been parked. I'm not sure it's gone away altogether forever, but it's one of those things that'll be a perennial thing, I'm sure. But as it stands, and the paper as it is, we can support that. And I know you've already mentioned it in your comments on the 2.8 about bringing anything back to council for formal approval. So obviously that's in there, and we'll make sure that that's it. And you know, it's not going to be a perfect scenario, 8 councils working together, all from different political persuasions, but I think from where I'm picking up, everybody's buying into it because it's the preferred option to the alternative. So it's not going to be easy, but we've got to make it work, Alex, and best of luck with it, and I'll support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Barker has mentioned the importance, what I was going to stress as well, on paragraph 2.8 about bringing any details, etc., back to full council. But I would just like to add to that I'm currently the shadow cabinet member for what covers climate change as well. Excuse me. So, like on the thanks a ton, Alex. I'll obviously be taking a keen interest in that, and would like to be kept in the loop because of the carbon reduction challenge, etc., so that we can all be singing from the same song sheet on that one. Thank you. That's just all I wanted to raise.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Sorry, Chair. I think Councillor Shipman and Councillor Hancock may want to come in, so I'll happily defer to them first, if that's okay.
All right, Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I think at this stage, I'll be supporting this. I think it's worth exploring so we can try and work together with the other councils, even if it doesn't work out that way in practice. So I'll be supporting it at this stage, and we'll see what comes back in future.
Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to echo everyone else, at this stage, given it is very, very draft, I'm happy to support it. I mean, my big concerns, to be truthful, are, I mean, yes, I absolutely oppose the unitary. I think the county is too diverse for us to even go down that route. My concerns here is that we have very little in common with the likes of High Peak, and of course it's seeing how that collaboration will take form. But I think as a council, we have to endorse Councillor Dale's ability to take this forward so that those discussions can be had and that those concerns can be raised and that he can come back to us with those solutions.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Can I just raise something, please? John.
Councillor Fennell.
Yeah, I think the Vision Derbyshire is the right route, and it keeps things momentum moving. I'm not sure it's the right question for this this group, but do we know what's happening at county council level? What route are they proposing, and what are they doing? The last thing we heard were they were going to write to the secretary. I just wondered whether what are they doing? Is that in parallel with what we're doing or against what we're doing?
Councillor Dale, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll try and cover all of those points. So, firstly, just to thank all members for the general in principle support. I think we all agree that it's right that we continue to engage and see what comes back. Councillor Wright's comments around the Thanks a Ton campaign, some of the green initiatives. I'm sure we can liaise with you to ensure that you are kept up to speed. And Councillor Kenyon, who's leading on the North East Derbyshire approach to Thanks a Ton, I'm sure we'll be happy to have a chat with you about that. Councillor Hancock's comments are very valid, and I think the diversity of the county is the important point, and hopefully Vision Derbyshire will take that into account, in that it will not only be a collaboration at scale in terms of the whole county, but it contains the flexibility for smaller groups of councils to collaborate on different issues. So much as we have now with Bolsover in the Strategic Alliance, or with Chesterfield as well in the Joint Board, or with the Dales as well in the ICT framework, we sort of can have that patchwork of different forms of collaboration depending on the issue and actually who's got the stomach to do it as well, I suppose, of all the different councils. So that flexibility is built in, hopefully, to what I've seen so far of Vision Derbyshire. And in terms of the county's approach, to Councillor Fennell, the county's position remains that Vision Derbyshire is the preferred option for local government reform in Derbyshire, and that's what's being pursued as far as I'm aware. So I hope that answers the query there. So yeah, happy to move to the vote, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. Can we have a show of hands, please? All those in favour?
Appears to be unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Item 10, emergency delegations. Can I invite the monitoring officer to present the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the time we went into the first lockdown in March, a number of emergency delegations were put in place by using the particular delegation quoted at 1.1. This was because there were no member meetings for a time, and we needed to be able to take action in certain areas. These powers have now lapsed, but there is a requirement in the Constitution to report back to you on the use of the power instigating them. So you can see on page 55 where they were used to put the emergency powers in place and in relation to one council tax issue. But on page 56 is a list of the decisions actually taken. These are all on the website, and it's not actually a requirement to report these decisions back, but for the fullness of the report, we've done so. Latest version of the emergency powers, so that you know what we were talking about, are on pages 68 to 71. And it is, as I say, a constitutional requirement to report back on the use of these powers. So the recommendation is that you note the decisions that have been made. And just to repeat, those are the decisions that have been made at 1.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder?
Sorry, questions.
The questions. Councillor Dale.
Just to say, I'm happy to move the report, but obviously, if there's any questions for Sarah, I'll wait to do so if that's better.
Thank you.
Councillor Barker has indicated his wish to speak.
Can I speak? Am I
Can I have a
all right, Chair?
seconder? Sorry.
Yes, it's all right. Yeah, I know we're in sort of extraordinary times, and I know we've got all the emergency powers.
Sorry, Councillor Barker, can I have a seconder?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Cooper. Thank you. Councillor Barker, sorry.
Switch my mic off. That I'm in reverse. Yeah, I know it's extraordinary times, and I know that I keep reading through this, to be honest, just to see if I can spot anything that's a bit out of order. And I basically we trust you on what's, you know, the powers that you can use under these delegate powers. And I know Councillor Birkin's got a couple of questions as well. So the only one for me, and it does link into what we'll probably talk about next time, is the councillor dispensation on the 7th of May. I don't quite. What happened there, Sarah? Can you just explain in a bit more detail? And also, there's a question: have the emergency powers run out now, then, or are you going to have to renew them? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to answer the last one first, yes, they ran out in November. We've not renewed them since. We carried them on for a little while just in case, but we've completely gone now because we do have these virtual meetings. So there's not a need for them. The dispensation will be the one that's the subject of the report to council next time. The dispensation delegated decision.
Okay, I thought it might be. Thank you.
Okay.
I know Councillor Birkin's wanting to.
Can I have Councillor Shipman first?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, to be honest, and I've said this before to the monitoring officer, that I'm so disappointed that it's talk from the 30th of March. Well, the first delegation was on the 25th of March 2020. It's taken until the 11th of January 2021 to report that these decisions have been taken, because I think it's Local Government Act that this is in, where they need reporting. It says at the earliest opportunity, or the next opportunity is the word, isn't it? Well, we've had a meeting in July, September, October, November. Now we've got one now. Why? The reason I was given was because we've got one member of staff less in the governance department. Well, I'm not being funny. These are delegated powers that we are being kept out of. So the first thing that should be on that agenda is for officers putting these decisions in front of council, so we know what's been done by this council. I don't think the reasons I've been given are acceptable. And I think when this report comes back to council at the next meeting, this investigation, I think it needs to take a serious hard look at itself about what actually has happened, so it doesn't happen again in future.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Councillor Shipman has expressed his disquiet that it's taken till now for us to come to use his term. However, I would point out these powers were in force until the end of November. They were active. They have all been done openly and transparently in accordance with the delegated powers, what we do. The actual decisions, which are not the subject of this report, but are given you for background information on page 56. They've all been published on the website, so it's not something that's being kept secret or whatever. And as to taking till now to come back, well, yes, it has been a very difficult period. Setting up these virtual meetings, as everybody in the country will tell you, are not easy, and they're officer intensive. Some things have been delayed. You have to prioritise.
Thank you. Councillor Birkin.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Joe Birkin, Sutton Ward. I agree with Councillor Shipman. I'm a little bit disappointed with the information that we've just had. Ms Sternberg says that it's all been transparent, but we've only just been told about it, as Councillor Shipman said, after 11 months. As invited on page 56 of the report, I attempted to view some of these decisions. I looked at 6 of them. For 5 of them, the message came up either no results or that it was restricted. So transparency is a little bit questionable when it says that I'm, as a sitting councillor, I've been restricted from looking at any of these items. The one that I did managed to pick out was about the building works on Chesterfield Road. And there was a reference there to the earlier decision that had been taken. When I looked at that, then that came out and said there were no results available as well. So I'm very disappointed that that we can't get on this. Sorry, Ms. Sternberg said it's on the website. It's not on the website. It's not. As I said, I've not been able to get over half of the about half of the information that's there. Could I? And I find it difficult to believe that point 1.7 on page 56, that these decisions are not required to be reported on. That could be anything. That could then be anything that any member or officer has decided to do for whatever reasons. I would think it'd be most important that these are properly reported upon. So I'd ask that a report is given to us on the decisions that were made and by whom for our next council meeting, please. Thank you.
If I might come back to on that, Chair. On the last point, no, we don't report back delegated decisions as standard. It is only a requirement in relation to the emergency planning delegation, which is quoted to you at 1.2. So as I said before, those sort of decisions on page 56, my screen's gone, are there for your information to show you the sort of things that these powers were used for. They're not there because we're reporting them back to you. In terms of not being able to get it on the website, etc., I will pick that point up because I was under the impression that you would be able to see it on the website. So I will find out about that and come back to you on it. But in terms of what was reported back, we do not report back every delegated decision. If we did, we might as well come to you as a council with every single decision. And that would be an awful lot of business. So a lot of it is done under delegated decision, and it should be advertised on the website if it's an open issue. So I will check into that one and get back to you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. And I know this is coming back to us, but I am going to pick up on the same thing because it is a huge issue, is this dispensation, which obviously does have significant legal repercussions. It has had significant legal repercussions already in that we have lost a member due to it. So the fact that that hasn't been reported back, it was taken as a decision that officers would not normally take. It would normally be a decision in legislation required by council. So I am going to bang the same drum as my colleagues from both my own party and from the Labour Party. Absolutely, these should not have been withheld this long, and with no disrespect at all to the monitoring officer, to say that it can't be reported back in that timescale is absolute lunacy. I mean, how long does it take to list half a dozen items at various meetings? It's a 10-minute job. It really is. I mean, this is just a table. It's not even got the full detail. That is not a labour-intensive job by any stretch of anyone's imagination.
Can I just re-emphasise one point further? Again, page 56 lists delegated decisions. There is no requirement to report back on those to council. They are there to give you an indication of what the emergency delegations were for. Yes, if you have all the time in the world, it's not a difficult or lengthy report to write. We simply didn't have all the time in the world, and that is a matter of fact.
Thank you.
Chair, could I raise something again?
You've already, sorry, but you've already spoken, Councillor Birkin.
Point of order then, Chair.
Which part of the Constitution has been breached?
I apologise. I don't know that distance, that detail, but I would just say that the information given on page 56 is not details of what decisions have been made. There's no detail in there. Chesterfield Road Duckman, what on earth does that mean? It's nonsense.
We will now move to the vote. Can I please ask members to give a show of hands for. We can do it by poll if you wish. Can we do it by poll? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've now launched the polling for members to vote either for, against or abstain, that the council note the decisions made under emergency delegated powers. Just have a few more members who'd like to cast their votes. Chair, I'm going to stop the polling now and just share that with you. So including the 2 votes within the chamber, that would be 37 votes for, 3 against, with 8 abstentions, which means that those recommendations have been carried.
Thank you. Point 11, to answer any questions from members under Procedure Rule 9.2. I can confirm that no questions have been submitted from members. We will move to the next item. And that is to consider any motion from members under Procedure Rule 10. And I can confirm that we have received 1 motion for today's meeting. Can I invite Councillor Cornwell to move the motion?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Councillor Susie Cornwell, representing Heath and Homewood, and I'm honoured to be bringing this motion forward on behalf of the charity Crohn's and Colitis UK, and on behalf of 300,000 people in the UK who have this disease, and Sophie Fletcher of North Wingfield, who wrote to her district councillor and has asked us to bring this motion. I see this as local democracy in action. And for those of you who don't know, I hope you will allow me the opportunity to tell you a bit about the disease. Crohn's and colitis are 2 forms of inflammatory bowel disease, and they are lifelong diseases of the gut. They are painful, debilitating, and widely misunderstood. There is no cure, and they're not classed as a disability. And when you have Crohn's or colitis, your immune system doesn't work properly. Your body starts attacking itself. It causes ulcers and inflammations in the gut. These conditions affect almost every part of your body and every aspect of your life. An urgent need to use the toilet is the main symptom of living with this disease. And people are often faced with anxieties such as having an accident in public, being refused toilet access, being confronted about why they're using an accessible facility. 1 in 2 people with Crohn's or colitis have received negative comments for using accessible toilets. So the motion before council today is because of the stigma and the misunderstanding surrounding invisible conditions, and to support those thousands of people who are suffering in silence, being subjected to discrimination and sometimes harassment just for trying to use the accessible toilet they urgently need. So through their campaign, Not Every Disability is Visible, the charity wants to change the signs on accessible toilets. It's actually the sign that's behind me. It wants to change it on the toilet doors to help people with invisible conditions feel confident using these essential facilities. I've often thought, if something doesn't affect you, then you have no idea on how this really affects you as a person or affects a person's life. And as councillors, our job is to make informed decisions and to make North East Derbyshire better for our residents. Now, my husband lives with this every day. It is utterly debilitating disease. And on a daily basis, the need to know that he is not far from the toilet that he can use is paramount in his mind, every minute of every day. So let's just take a moment to think about that. Sophie Fletcher, my husband, 300,000 people in the UK, every minute of every day have to plan their life around whether they are close to a toilet. So can you imagine then, when they're in pain and when they're in need, how they feel when somebody challenges them and they have to use their radar key or show this card to say urgent, can't wait. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing saying these words in a council chamber, but not half as embarrassing as needing the toilet and being refused access to the toilet because you don't look disabled, and knowing the consequences of not being allowed to use the toilet or being frowned on and told, no, you're not disabled. You can't use that toilet. So this campaign is about installing these signs in supermarkets, retail areas, airports, railways, service stations. They're now calling on restaurants and pubs and across the country to do the same. Oldham and Manchester Council have also installed them. So by supporting Not Every Disability is Visible, North East Derbyshire will be making the visible invisible, just like the T-shirt that I'm wearing. So let our council pave the way for people to visit and work in our building that recognises their disability by bearing the new taper sign and by training our staff. Let's spread this word to all our parishes and the facilities that we run, and let's work closely with the retail and restaurant sector. The charity is asking for something so simple and so cheap to implement. I urge the council to support this motion and the amendment that's proposed by Councillor Hancock and make our district a safe place for those with this invisible disease. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm sorry it took a few minutes, but it's really important to me.
Can I second that, Chair? And can I reserve and come back and speak at the end, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Barker. I've been informed that there are some people who require a comfort break. Could I interrupt here and just say, can we have 2 minutes pause? Thank you.
So members, you're welcome to turn your cameras off and mute for the next couple of minutes.
Thank you, Chair. It's Councillor Martin Thacker representing Brampton and Walton Ward. The motion refers to Crohn's disease and colitis, but there are many other hidden disabilities which may cause continence issues and may require the use of an accessible toilet. These categories, as highlighted by Access for All UK, are diverticulitis, which affects 1 in 10 people over the age of 45. Stoma wearers, there are 102,000 people in the UK. Autism, of which there are 700,000 people in the UK. Learning disabilities, that's 1.5 million people, with 350,000 having severe learning disabilities. And dementia, 850,000 people in the UK. When you add these figures to the number of people with Crohn's disease, that's 1 in 650 people, and colitis, at least 146,000 people, the numbers are very significant. There is a misunderstanding by some that accessible toilets are solely for the use of wheelchair users. A change of signage to highlight that facilities are for the use of people with hidden disabilities too would be extremely helpful, and I support the introduction of the signage suggested. Training that enables people to understand the need for accessible toilets and use by people with hidden disabilities would also be an excellent step. Access for All UK maintains that training should emphasise the needs of the wider population who may require use of accessible toilets, and this is something our council should be mindful of. Turning to changing places toilets. Changing places toilets are needed by at least 250,000 people in the UK. Better signage is an extremely welcome suggestion. Changing places awareness training is beneficial. Often, facilities are installed at venues without any awareness training being given to venue staff, who are then not aware of what these vital facilities are, who needs them, and why. They are also unable to signpost them to those who may need them, monitor, maintain, or promote them effectively. I'm sure Councillor Cornwell will accept my comments as further examples of the invisible conditions referred to in the motion, and as suggestions to be borne in mind by officers when considering implementation. I welcome this motion and wholeheartedly support it. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask Councillor Windley next, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Thacker's said more or less all that I was going to say as well. I totally endorse this. I embrace it. There are so many other conditions, medical conditions and disabilities that don't necessarily mean that the person needs a wheelchair. And consultants at the hospital will very often advise that, did you realise that you can have a radar key for this condition? So I really support this motion. I would just ask, and I think Councillor Cromwell is already aware that I would also like including in what the motion is, the reasons, is that we endeavour to try and get the signage low enough so that people in wheelchairs can actually see it. I have come across some changing places where it's too high, and you can't expect someone that's sat in a wheelchair to see it. People that can walk probably will, but not the people in wheelchairs. But it's an excellent motion and I fully agree with it. Thank you.
Councillor Windle. Finlay, are you asking someone to make an amendment or to add to it?
Yes, yes. I think Councillor Cromwell's probably already aware that we've asked to be added to.
Yeah, I thought it was Councillor Hancock that was bringing it, so, and I didn't.
Yeah, he did it on, he sent it on my behalf initially. But yes.
Chair, for clarity, the governance officer was going to bring it up on screen.
Yeah.
So would you like for me to do that now?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So where is the proposed amendment, members?
In green.
Right, okay.
Councillor Hancock, do you want to speak?
Yes, if I can second that, Chair. It's purely a case, obviously, we're talking about hidden disabilities. We need to ensure, obviously, we don't forget the visible disabilities. And whilst this amendment is a very, very minor one, we have seen instances elsewhere in other local authorities where they have failed to address this issue, and the signs have been placed far too high for wheelchair users to actually see them. Other than that, obviously, as has already been said by Councillor Windley and Councillor Thacker, I think every single person in the meeting backs the motion, and I think it's a very positive step forward, and as a forward-looking council, we should lead the way. So that's all I've got to say, Chair. Thank you.
Can I say, as the seconder to the original motion, that I agree with the amendment? So there's no confusion.
That's very helpful, Councillor Barker. I was just about to come in and say, strictly speaking, this is an amendment which we'd debate and vote on. But if the mover and the second and with the consensus of the meeting is that it should be added, if you just show by waving your hand, we'll just add it to the main motion. Thank you. If you show hand, say you're happy for that.
Yeah.
Everybody seems happy? Yeah, we'll take that as the amended motion then. Okay, now,
Councillor Parker?
Parkin.
Sorry.
Councillor Paul Parkin, representing Jonfield North. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'd like to thank Susie for bringing this motion to Council today. I have a very personal reason for wanting to ensure that this Council supports these invisible problems that are encountered when people need to use these facilities. A colleague at work just before Christmas, she had some very, very severe issues, and without going into masses of details, it went from being a comfortable situation before to an extremely painful situation and difficult situation very rapidly for this particular individual. I wholeheartedly support. Now I understand, and if anybody on the council currently doesn't understand the need, I would suggest you have a look at some of the material online. But I wholeheartedly support the notices and the spirit of this motion, and will be voting for it. Thank you for bringing it forward, Susie Corner.
Thank you. Councillor Leggett?
Councillor Liggett, representing Sherland Ward. I'd like to add my thanks to Councillor Cornwall as well, as my father had Crohn's disease and my mother has diverticulitis, and I too have flare-ups, and I am one of those people that once had to use a disabled toilet and was attacked aggressively on leaving. So I am very, very grateful for this coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Birkin?
Thank you, Chair. With no disrespect to the Chair, I just want to raise a couple of points. One is, sorry, and to add to what Councillor Thacker said, spinal injury patients are a very large number that have problems. I myself have a spinal injury, a spinal cord injury, which means I'm one of those partially disabled people. I'm what's known as a walker because I don't need a wheelchair, but I do have other problems, and I've used accessible toilets myself. I've been challenged as well as to why I've had to do that. And apologies, Chair, but 2 minutes isn't enough for a comfort break. Seriously, people need to think about that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cornwell, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
Only to say the irony wasn't lost on me that we had a comfort break the moment I'd finished speaking. And maybe I should have used the opportunity to invite everyone to have a comfort break prior to that. And also just to say thank you to all those that have spoken. I can see there's a lot of support within the council for this. I don't assume it's going to be an issue when it comes to the vote. I wasn't purposely ignoring all those other disabilities. I was just trying to represent the Crohn's and Colitis UK, who actually brought this, and for Sophie Fletcher, who brought it to our attention and got us to do it. Can I just show you all for one moment? This is the sign that we're voting on, and below it says, "Not every disability is visible." Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I just didn't speak when I seconded it, and I think well, it's great that everyone's going to support it. And I was just going to make the point: I'm usually not in favour of these round robins when somebody sends you a fully written resolution to council. But obviously, you can see that it's a personal for some of our councillors. It's an issue that does come in, and as somebody that's drove a minibus full of folks with learning disabilities and disabilities. These changing places have been a relief, and that's upon that's because when somebody wants to go, but they're not publicised very well. Every public building has probably got a disabled toilet, but you're never quite sure. So the more we can get this signage out, so if there is somebody riding around with a car full or a minibus full of folks, at least they know where they can go. So. Thanks again. It sounds like it's going to go through. So thank you, and let's hope we can. I know it's a big ask when you're asking private concerns to do it, but we can influence all that, can't we? Thank you.
Councillor Barry, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Well, it was to thank everybody for taking this on board, because like I said, Sophie did write into us at North Wingfield in relation to this. But what I think, I'm accepting everybody's going to vote on this, but my next thing would be, could we be looking at timescales for getting this actioned? Because we've got a lot of buildings, and we don't want to leave it hanging in the balance. We've made a great decision, or we will do shortly. So I'd like to make sure that it gets enacted as soon as possible. And I'm not sure whether we should even be looking at this in a Braille format as well, for those that are sight impaired. But just about the timescales, and if the officers could take this on board and move with it rather quickly. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We are going to go to the vote, but I'd just like to bring back in Councillor Windley.
Yeah. Councillor Barker, there is a site that you can actually visit, Changing Places, and it will show you all the changing places that are around the UK if you're travelling around. It's quite useful. That's all I needed to say.
Pam, I don't do it anymore, so hopefully I'll not be in that situation.
No, but if for anybody else that's listening, it is there. There is a site there, Changing Places. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Can we now move to the vote? Can we have vote by a show of hands? All those in favour?
That's carried, Chair.
All those against? Anyone? No, I think it was unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Where are we now? I will now move that the public be excluded from the meeting. Following the item of business to avoid the disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 2, Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. I have a seconder. Councillor Thacker.
Yes, I second it, Chair.
We will now vote by show of hands. Poll, sorry.
Chair, I want to say something else, if that's okay.
Councillor Shipman.
I don't understand what's exempt in here. I'm looking at all the information that I'm looking at is information about how the Killamarsh Sports Centre's running at the moment, and we're going to be taking out loans for it. I don't see why any of that would be exempt, but surely it's in the public interest. They hear the debate and see what it is they're talking about, because what they're going to get is they ultimately we're spending their money, and we're committing into potentially a lease or other arrangements with taxpayers' money. Both organisations in this deal are taxpayer funded. So can you make me understand why any of this is exempt? I can see why might be an issue for private companies who are involved, because what we're discussing might affect, share prices and all sorts of things. But this, we are talking about two public sector bodies, and about one taking out a loan to enter into an arrangement with another one. I would like to see a vote on us going into whether we're going into exempt, because I don't believe we can, and I don't believe any council sat around this table can honestly justify us going into exemption over this.
Councillor Dale. Oh, Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure Sarah can give a more detailed reply, but my understanding is that in terms of the Killamarsh paper, it's for reasons of commercial sensitivity. These are not private organisations, but they are in direct competition with private organisations, and it's an extremely competitive marketplace. In terms of the other paper, it's in relation to staffing matters, so it makes sense that is dealt with in exempt information as per typical. But Sarah, as monitoring officer, might be able to provide more information. That's my understanding, anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's entirely correct. Paragraph 3, particularly of Schedule 12A, talks about the financial affairs of the authority, not just private sector businesses. So it's both authorities that have commercial sensitivities for that particular report, and it is usual to do employment-related ones under those paragraphs in exempt business, because of course it's not a foregone conclusion that members will agree with it. In terms of the vote itself, you expressed, Councillor Shipman, a desire to have a vote, to have it in public. You don't need that. If you vote against putting it into exempt business, it will remain open as a meeting. But it is for members to decide whether they wish, whether it's in the public interest to go into exempt business or to stay open.
So I've now moved it. May I have a seconder?
Chair, I will second for clarity though, and I think that the issue that Councillor Shipman is raising, obviously the staffing issue should be confidential, but the Killamarsh Leisure Centre one, I think it's very difficult to justify that as being something that would be exempt, again for the same reasons that Ross has mentioned. They are two public authorities, and we are dealing with public money here.
I've already seconded it.
Chair, may I ask a question, please? As a Killamarsh member?
Yes.
I fully understand and appreciate why we shouldn't be allowed to vote at the end of the debate that's about to come online. But I fail to see why we can't be allowed to stay in the room and witness, you know, the debate without seeking to influence the outcome of that debate. So can I have clarity on that, please?
If I might, Chair, if I could deal with Councillor Hancock's point first. Public authorities or not, there is a need for room for authorities to consider and decide what they want to do. That is well recognised in all sorts of legislation, such as freedom of information legislation. You've got to have that space to come to a conclusion, and that's what paragraph 3, as well as naming the individuals under 1 and 2, that's what it is providing, a safe space for the council to consider what it wants to do with commercially sensitive details. In terms of the interest, Councillor Potts, I'm afraid we're stuck with the Constitution, which requires members to leave the chamber. In a physical meeting, you would have to physically leave the chamber. This is no different. You will just have to leave the Zoom meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just reiterate? I did second it
Yes.
a short while ago, and so it's seconded again.
Yes, now we have a seconder. We will now vote by poll.
Yeah, aye.
Oh, Councillor Whitehead, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just regarding the safe space that Sarah's just alluded to, we are in slightly different times where that we will leave the meeting and then watch the meeting on YouTube, which is a bit strange. So we're not going to be, in fact, no, that is incorrect, isn't it? Because it's coming out of, well, until we've decided whether it's going into private session or not, I suppose that one's up in the air. But I would support being a Killamarsh Parish Councillor and a North East Killamarsh Councillor. I would support that this motion is debated in public, because it is largely impacting 2 authorities, and the interest in the public is quite widespread, and there's a danger that this whole process will be done in private session without public scrutiny. So obviously I think it's down to the members now to decide whether that will take place or not. But let's be clear that we don't want decisions being taken on significant grounds that affect the public behind closed doors.
Are there any other speakers?
Chair, yes, please. Councillor Kenyon.
Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you. I would just like to say that it's also about the employees that work at the Leisure Centre, and I think for that reason, if no other reason, it should be exempt.
Thank you. Councillor Clough. No. Councillor Clough, do you wish to speak? No. We'll now
Sorry,
vote.
thank you, Chair. Sorry, I didn't have my hand up this time. I would like to register my interest in this. I did have my hand up, but wasn't given the option to say anything last time.
Thank you. We'll now vote.
Chair, could I just ask on a point? Do we as Killamarsh parish councillors, do we have a vote on whether this is taken into private session? Is that an issue for us to vote on?
That's a very good question. I think the answer is you can vote on moving to exempt, but then you would have to leave, obviously, for the Killamarsh report.
Thank you.
Chair, would you like for me to issue the poll?
Is it worth some clarity on what the vote is, Chair? So voting for it is to go into exempt, voting against it is to stay in public forum.
Yes. We'll go to the poll. All those in favour?
So members, I've issued an electronic poll to you. Voting for is to exclude the public for the remainder of the meeting. Against is to vote against that item. Just a few more votes to come in. Should just be one further vote to be made. Okay, I shall end the polling there and just share those results with you. So we have 2 votes for from the chamber, so that would make that 34, 8 against with 9 abstentions, which means that the motion is carried. And therefore we will move into exempt session.
Thank you.
If you bear with me one moment, Chair, I will just stop the live feed.
Yeah.